Okay, so we got the cool shots, the slow motion shots of our beans, of opening the bag, of doing those kind of cool cinematic things. We shot everything close and tight to make it look more dramatic. Now what we're gonna do is hop to having the coffee grounds, putting that into the French press. Now I don't have one of the coffee blender things, so we're gonna kind of magically jump here from the beans to the grounds, but let's shoot this process and see what it looks like. So on this shot specifically, I'm going to do a relatively quick push in like that to add drama to him turning the spoon and dropping in the coffee grounds. Okay, go ahead. Perfect. Now let's do one more. I want to tilt the camera like this when you so point it directly at me, like if my camera's here, and then we're gonna do this together. Okay, so you can just hold it right here. So I'm gonna kind of try an experimental shot here. I'm gonna have the camera here, and then when he turns it, I'm gonna turn with him. So I'm gonna shoot a little bit wider. That gives me more room for error for turning the camera. But on the count of three, I say one, two, three, and then we go. So one, two, three. Sweet. Okay, cool. So now this is brewing. So we're gonna wait until we start to get some bubbles, and I'm gonna shoot a slow motion shot of that, and then we will get our cool pouring shot. Now the reason that as I'm going, I'm doing movement is because if we shoot this stationary and it's just kind of a tripod shot with not a lot of movement, it's not gonna create a whole lot of character. So camera movement creates personality. If I move the camera and I dramatically push the camera towards an object, that creates a sense of urgency. Now, if I have that same exact object and I slowly pull away the camera, that creates a sense of calmly leaving a scenario or a situation. So you're pointing at what you want your viewer to see, and how you move the camera tells them how you want them to feel about what they're seeing. So I want the viewer to feel excited and kind of like, whoa, because to make it look good, you want to add a little something else. So you can do that with lighting, you can do that with camera movement, and you can do that with kind of having your subject that you're shooting B-roll with do things that are synchronized with what you're doing, kind of planning things out a little bit. So we're taking our shot list and translating these images and descriptions into impactful imagery that makes it uniquely yours. So you don't always have to be doing camera movement. You don't always have to be doing close-ups like I'm doing. These are just tips that you guys can do to really make it your own and make it your own personality and your own style. Go, 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 go. Should be chilling. Okay, cool. So we're starting to get some bubbles. So I'm at 70 mil and I'm on manual focus. With something like this that's a little bit tricky to shoot, you kind of want to shoot it multiple different angles, because something like water with bubbles in it can look really interesting if it's shot right, or it can look really boring if it's not shot right. So I'm experimenting with multiple angles and different framings, different distances. Okay, perfect. So now we should have plenty hot water shots, boiling water shots. What I want to do is I'm going to start with the angle down here, because we can only get that shot once. We can only get the water hitting the coffee grounds once. So I'm going to start with a close up down here, and then I'm going to pause what we're doing, and then I'm going to get a close up of the pour of the water coming out. So you really want to think ahead of time what you can only shoot once, what you have one opportunity to get. We can only get these coffee grounds getting wet once, and plan that out as you're going through your shoot. You want to have as much of it planned out before you start shooting as possible, but sometimes you get things set up and then you plan it out just before you get shooting. So let's go ahead and get that set up. I'm gonna do a little bit of an orbiting shot here where I'm gonna slide the camera kind of along the table to get kind of a dramatic wraparound shot. And this is by no means like perfect framing or anything, but it's kind of, it'll do for this kind of shoot. So let me set my focus, and I'm gonna do a practice shot because, like I said, we only have one go here. So I'm gonna start here, set my focus, and that when I get rolling, then I'm gonna tell him to pour. So I'm gonna go to the beginning of my shot. You can go ahead and start pouring slowly. Perfect. So here I want to do a rack focus where I go from the water to the coffee, and now I want to get a close up of the bubbles. So I'm going to use the rim of the glass as a little bit of foreground and then move in like that. So go ahead and do some more pouring. So I have the rim of the glass in the foreground. Go ahead. And I'm going to move into the inside of the cup. Okay, perfect. Now I want to get just the stream. Perfect. Okay, good. And you want to also keep in mind that not everything you shoot you're going to use. So you kind of want to shoot stuff as much as you can, because out of the 20 shots that you shoot, you may only use 8, you may only use 5, you may only use 4. It really depends. Now I want to get the kind of French press going down shot. So you can go ahead and kind of put it there and then slowly move it down. So I'm going to kind of do a tilt down as he's pressing the coffee, French press down. So you can go ahead. Now let's do that again. I want to get a little bit of a wider shot because I'm not sure if that's the one I want to use, the close up. And I'm going to do something a little bit different for this one. So we'll go ahead and do that same movement, and I'm going to move down as he's doing it. So go ahead. Perfect. Okay, perfect. So I did a transition down with him as he was pressing down, and we're going to use the wipe from this table for me to use as a transition into the next shot. The next shot is going to be pouring. So let's get you a cup, buddy. So I came down under the table. Now I want to match that same exact movement into the beginning of the next shot to make a seamless cut using camera movement and kind of that wipe effect. It'll make sense when you see these two cut together. So we're going to take a moment to what's called block this out, where you work with the person who's doing the camera work, and then you work with the talent in front of the camera to set up the movement correct for the shot. So Flats, what I want to kind of do is like the camera's here, I'm like this, and you like wipe down and then like ninja status, okay? So we'll do it a few times without you pouring. Okay, go ahead. Okay, so I kind of want to move everything a little bit out of the way because we're doing a little bit of a wider. We're not going to be shooting this at 70 because there's movement happening, and I want to keep everything in frame as much as possible. So we'll go ahead. Yeah, I mean, this will be the real first real deal test. Go ahead. That was a pretty heavy pour, bro. But I think that'll look good. I really like that one, but we're gonna do with stuff like this where it's your ending shot of your montage or your video, you wanna make sure you nail it. So we're gonna do that one again. Yeah, that needs to be lined up. Okay, go ahead. That's so amazing ending shot by Vlads. Now I'm gonna cut these shots together, add the slow motion, do a little bit of stabilization, and we're gonna see what the final product of these raw shots look like. Compared to the final edit where we kind of add that little gloss and refinement of all the tools and tips that we learned so far in this course to these B-roll shots for your montage. And here is that final edit. So yeah, this realization hit me earlier today. It's kind of it's hard to say. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to say. But I am addicted to coffee. I just love the entire experience of it. Those lovely textured beans and then brewing it. It's when you pour that piping hot water over those freshly ground beans. You know what? And then sometimes I feel like maybe I don't need this. Maybe this is something that I should stop indulging in. Yeah, you know what? I think I'm gonna stop today. Yeah, on second thought. I think I'm gonna get a second cup. Yeah, boy. Woo! Okay, so now it is time for you to shoot your epic, amazing looking B-roll. We've been really working up to this point in the course, and yeah, I'm excited to see what you come up with. So what we're gonna be doing is making your own upgraded video. So I want you to choose a specific action to shoot B-roll footage of. This should be the visuals that match up with your A-roll or main speaking footage, okay? The audio of your video here can be from what we shot, or you can add your own new soundtrack. So you can either use the audio if I were to shoot my hand doing this, and if I use that sound, that's using the audio from that footage, makes sense? Versus putting in a soundtrack like so, right? So you can really get as creative as you want, but yeah, there has to be some form of audio that's being used. Next, the point is to make your average looking video sound and feel amazing using the techniques that we've learned. So I'm going to demonstrate potentially what that can look like with my coffee video. So yeah, this realization hit me earlier today. It's kind of it's hard to say, but I am addicted to coffee. Those lovely textured beans and then brewing it. It's when you pour that piping hot water over those freshly ground beans. You know what? And then sometimes I feel like, so you see, right? You're using cutaway shots to really upgrade the feeling and the production value of your video. So now it is your turn. I want you to film the B-roll for your talking footage, okay? First step is to use the A-roll as your base layer of footage. The second step is to shoot 5 to 10 shots with different shot types and camera movement that we've learned. Then you're going to edit your footage together and you're going to export and share the video link with the combined A-roll and B-roll footage in the Q&A section. First off, and maybe one of the most difficult, is that we always want to take our time in post-production. This is the final element of the film or video and the most time consuming. So if you're not a very patient person, if you have a tight deadline, this is where things can get a little bit tricky. So just knowing ahead of time that the post-production is probably going to be the most time consuming portion, you need to be centered, be calm going into it so that when you're sitting and getting through those scenes or sequences and creating what you want, you're not expecting to finish in 2 hours. It doesn't really happen that way. So many times with projects, I've spent 6.5 hours on these 4 to 5 second sequences where I'm layering multiple layers in After Effects, doing a bunch of compositing, and really a lot of post-production styling And like I said, these aren't 1 hour turnaround times for videos, 6.5 hours for just one small sequence. So taking your time is really crucial, being patient with yourself. Secondly, we always want to be keeping what the viewer is seeing in mind. Exactly like in production, but in the post-production process, we're sitting at the computer editing a sequence, and by the 100th time that we see that sequence, we know where the next cut's going to be, what the next shot is, what the stylizing is, what the dialogue is, what the music is. But the first time that the viewer sees this film or video is going to be the first time that they see it. So they don't know what to expect. They don't know where to look, right? So we need to always be coming back to the editing that we're doing, whether we're at the first edit, second edit, or the final refining process. We need to always come into the editing process itself with a clean slate, right? With no attachments to any shots that we have, and pretend like we've honestly never seen the film before, so we can get the most objective observation or opinion about the video right off the bat, right? Because if we have our own opinions about things and we know what's going to happen next, it's not going to be as much of an authentic experience for the actual viewer who's going to be seeing it in the long run. And third, for me, this is very important, and for you guys, it's good to understand that editing is a marriage between audio and visual, right? This is how we're communicating to someone. We're communicating in these two senses. So we're marrying these two senses together, that's strengthening each other, not weakening each other. So the most amazing content or footage paired together with audio that just doesn't match, that doesn't feel right, or that doesn't contribute to the overall direction or vision of those visuals, it's not going to be a good final product, right? We've all seen the commercials where it's either excellent visuals, cheesy audio, or a really awesome song with really not awesome visuals. So keeping this in mind, how can I complement my footage more with the audio that I have or the audio that I'm choosing? How can I complement my audio more, or my music or my dialogue, with the visuals that I have? And finally, leaving all your personal attachments behind. This is along the same lines as I mentioned before about coming into each editing session with a clean slate. Especially if you were involved in the production process and there are certain shots in there that you have an emotional attachment to, that maybe it was the end of the day, the sun was going down and you were rushing to get everything that you wanted to get, and you ended up getting that final scene or that final shot because so much of your emotion went into the creation of that. Now, you're going to probably want to keep that shot in your video. Let's say objectively that shot isn't necessarily a dynamic or important role for the video. You, in the production phase, are going to be attached to that, and you're going to bring that attachment into the post-production phase. And that might warp your perception of what should make the cut and what shouldn't make the cut, what should be in the video, what shouldn't be in the video. So always leaving your attachments outside of the editing process, especially if you were involved in the production process, because you're going to have a lot of emotional connections to the shots that your viewers will not. And I have a perfect example of this emotional attachment. On this American Gentleman project, I had an idea going into the shoot that I wanted to rotoscope our character or our actor and have multiple clones of him in different styles, doing different looks and doing different movements in one single shot. So I did hours and hours of post-production rotoscoping, and I had an incredible attachment to that shot, and I really wanted to stand out and be the star of the entire video. Now I had to connect and communicate with the client, and we kind of had to go back and forth between a few different things, because I was super attached to the shot, but the client or any other viewer that would see it wouldn't remember all those hours that went into the editing process to create that moment. So keeping this in mind, that you always have to come into your project, especially in the editing phase, with an objective approach. All right, so before we get into the main steps of post-production, a little thing that I like to do before I even have my footage logged and captured into my computer is to have a few songs picked out in mind for the video that I'm going to be putting together. And I really like to imagine what kind of vibe that I want the audience or the viewer to be experiencing when they're watching that video. Because like we've mentioned and that we've learned before, you guys should be good at this by now, is that the sound is this kind of invisible layer in the background that's telling the audience what to feel. So before bringing my footage into the computer, I generally pick out, 2 to 4 tracks that I think will line up with the kind of overall video that I'm going to create. So a perfect example of this is my recent demo reel. I had a couple songs in mind that I definitely wanted to possibly use because of the high energy that they had, and I think all demo reels should inspire and excite the viewer, the client. It shouldn't be a slow, dramatic thing. So I'll just play a few of these tracks that I had chosen that might have been used for the demo reel because they had the right vibe that I was looking for. Ooh. See what I'm saying? So as you can see, it has that high energy that I'm looking for. The other track was mm, 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 mm. For so long. Mm-hmm. Come on. Oh. Mm. You get the point. And finally, the track that I did end up going with had a good mixture of everything. Ooh. So you get the point. Narrow down the overall vibe that you're looking for ahead of time. Now let's get into the main actual steps of the post-production process.